What up, YouTube? This is Steven Tower. This is Tabby Iraq. So today we're going to talk about something special, something I really love, which is anime. I really love anime, and so I've been kind of thinking about just about a lot of my friends who kind of watch anime. A lot of my friends kind of really respect anime as a whole. They really like the Naruto. They really like Full Metal Alchemist. But I figure out most of my friends have never really tried outside those main things. And it's one of the main things that made me really fall in love is actually for me to kind of actually explore anime, try out a lot of different shows, and that's what really made me fall in love with anime. And so I kind of wanted to kind of give a kind of a guide or kind of what to watch to kind of get outside your bubble. And this is kind of my main reasoning for this is to kind of get outside the main anime and show you kind of some shows that you can do because kind of what I realized is there's a lot of people who are kind of afraid of starting these really gigantic shows that are like shows like Naruto who've done almost like 400 episodes, Fairy Tale, which have done over 200 episodes, One Piece, which is going on forever, it seems like. And so these shows really scare a lot of people. But I think what a lot of people don't understand is there's also these simulcast times. There's like kind of regular seasons, kind of like in the United States, where we have kind of our, our fall, our winter, our spring, and then our summer. Japan has the same type of thing. And so right now is the spring lineup. And so there's a lot of good shows that have started kind of the past couple weeks, past, six. It's been going on for the past 4 or 5 weeks total right now. And so they're right in the middle of it. And so it's the best time. It's really the best time to really kind of check out these shows because there's enough anime to kind of figure out if you like it or not. And also, if you really get addicted, you can kind of binge watch, 4 or 5 of these shows and then you get up kind of currently. And there's a lot of really good, just real solid places right now to watch these anime. So, kind of what I really wanted to kind of do is kind of recommend 4 anime that you should check out for the spring, the spring simulcast season because I really feel like there's some good stuff. So, please note, I'm going to do kind of some light spoilers. I'm probably going to at least talk about kind of the first episode, and I just want to kind of warn people about that. So I may put my list down below if you want to just look at my list. I just want to be real helpful to you guys. And so this is kind of the reason I want to make this video. So my first show that I really kind of recommend is this show called Space Patrol Lyoko. And so the Space Patrol Lyoko is this really cool show. So the show centers around this girl named Lyoko, of course. It comes from the title. Lyoko is just your average junior high girl who is trying to be normal, which is gonna make sense. She's trying to act normal, but she lives in the most weirdest abnormal type of place. She lives in this somewhat, I would almost call it like a space colony in a lot of things, but it's actually in Japan. And so basically, in her world, the aliens and the people that live on Earth have come together and they formed this colony, and that's in Japan. The aliens have bought a piece of land, and now aliens and humans can kind of coexist. And so that's where we are left with Lyoko. And so Lyoko is this junior high girl, kind of go throughout. She lives in basically almost a Japanese type town, but there's aliens. And so, like, if you look all around her, like the students that go to school with her are all aliens. Her dad works for like a space patrol and so forth. And so one day it kind of really changed for the difference, and her dad gets frozen, gets basically frozen, and she has to take her dad to the space patrol where he works, and Lulu gets basically gets recruited by the space patrol to become a space patrol person, and it's basically basically what the space patrol say is they cannot get into the junior highs because they're too young, they're too old to get to work at the junior high, so they have to have someone inside who can find out crimes that are done through that, and so that starts our story, and so throughout the story we see 2 different kind of space patrol. It's really interesting. It's very dynamic. This anime is done by Trigger, which has a long history of making real high pace, action oriented type anime, and so You definitely see it in Luluco. What's really nice about this anime, and one of the reasons you probably should watch it, is it's an 8-minute anime. It's a really really short anime. So, if you got time, you're making your food, or you're waiting on the bus, it's a good anime just to plug in, watch it, and you're done. You can eat lunch and you can watch it. So I would definitely recommend that if you just want something small and you want to get into that. And so that's my first recommendation. My second recommendation is this really cool anime called Kizunaiver. Kizunaiver! I don't know how to say it right. Kizunaiver is also an anime done by Trigger. The same people that made the Space Patrol Loco. And this is so what's cool about Trigger is usually they do about one or maybe two anime. This is one of the rare times they actually do two anime. Kizunaiver is their big attempt to do a really cool type anime. It's a very meta type anime. So it takes place in this town called Sugimori, and pretty much we find our antagonist. It is Agata Nagasami. I'm going to totally mess it up. We find our antagonist, and he basically can like to get beaten up, and he doesn't feel pain. He doesn't know how to feel pain, and so he's a guy who basically allows pain to happen to him because he just wants it to go away. And we find him, and kind of throughout the first episode, we see him kind of get recruited by this girl, Suzunaki, who's trying to recruit these people. And basically what Suzunaki kind of reveals is this town is not really just a town. It's more of like a futuristic kind of test facility in a lot of sense. This town is more of like people that live this town are unknowingly are lab subjects in a lot of sense. And so the Suzunaki operates for this kind of this undercover secret ops type people who are studying this town, and basically they recruit these people call Kizunaiver, and basically they tell our antagonist that you're a part of this Kizunaiver. And so basically what we find out is these Kizunaivers are basically these group of kids. They're about 8 or 10. I think there were like 8 or 7 people total, and they all supposedly share connections of some sort. So basically the biggest root of this anime is if a person gets attacked, they all feel the pain and so forth. Except for our protagonist, in a sense, he doesn't feel pain, of course. And so it makes for a real interesting type dynamics. And supposedly what Tsunagi tells our Kizunaivers, unquote, is they all have some various type of connection. And so they kind of go through their life trying to figure out the connection. And so this group is now, their main mission for this group is to stop war, of course, of all things, because it is an anime. And so it's a real interesting type anime. I haven't gone fully deep with this anime just yet. It's definitely worth checking out. I think what's interesting about Trigger to kind of take note about, and I think why this anime is probably definitely going to be really good, is usually they start off with a really simple thing, and their simple thing really explodes and gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then of course, knowing it's Trigger, halfway through the anime, they'll even go something totally different. And so usually, like, their ideas are really interesting, and then they get pretty wild. And so definitely worth checking out. So that is my second anime. My third anime is one of them. I think these next two anime are probably the contenders for the year. I think I would say these two next anime are very much contenders. So this third anime is an anime called Bungo Stray Dogs. Bungo Stray Dogs is a pretty awesome anime. So I want to kind of give you kind of the first episode and kind of where it's going. This first episode is kind of really cool. So basically we met our antagonist, this guy named Nakajima Atushi, pretty much. He's pretty much this orphan kid who is basically struggling with finding food. Like, we see him like he's almost on the brink of like starvation in a lot of sense. Like, he's contemplating, does he have to steal for someone to actually get food, to actually try to survive? And he's like real worried if he's going to die or not. And so he's in dire straits. And he finally, out of nowhere, as he's considering if he wants to steal for someone, out of nowhere, he meets this guy called Ozai Azuma or something like that. sorry about these. I'm missing these names. He meets this guy, and he starts talking to this guy, and Ozai. I'm gonna go by Ozai, and he said, he asked Ozai asked him like, "What do you want?" And basically asked, "Can I get food from you guys?" And so he gets taken to lunch, and they started talking to these two guys, Ozai and his colleague, the guy who works with him. And as they start talking to him, they find out they are part of the Armed Detective Agency. Ozai works for the Armed Detective Agency, which are these group of individuals who have special powers, who basically are, they go investigate kind of very much paramilitary type activities. Activities that happen with the military, and also kind of these big overarching illegal activities per se. And so immediately they're on this. So Ozai is on this case. Their current case is to find this man-eating tiger in the same area that our protagonist is in. And so we were left with that. And we find out our protagonist has pretty much, he can become a lion at nighttime or whenever he feels really threatened by something. And he does not know this, understands this. And so Ozai basically recruits, because he knows about this, Ozai kind of figures that out, and he recruits them into the Armed Detective Agency. And then thus starting kind of the first steps of them coming together. And so they form our antagonist joins the Armed Detective Agency, and then they start fighting these other paramilitary type groups with special powers. And it's a real interesting type of anime. That's all I want to kind of really reveal about the anime. It's definitely really cool. One really interesting note about this anime, it has really cool literary type focuses. A lot of the characters are based off of like Western and Eastern type work. A lot of them are all the names are based off of Japanese authors, and a lot of their special attacks are actual pieces of work that they do. And some of the characters actually have shared traits. For instance, like the Ozai guy, actually, the reason he has suicidal tendencies is the fact that the guy that he's based off also tried to basically drown himself and kill himself in a variety of different ways. So it's kind of really interesting, real cool, real awesome. It's definitely worth checking out. My last one is probably the biggest contender for the best anime for this year so far, and this anime is called My Hero Academia. My Hero Academia is one of the most awesome shows. I cannot stress this enough. My Academia is awesome. I love this show. My Hero Academia is this really awesome show. I was talking to one of my friends yesterday about it, and he wanted to know how to describe it, because he was kind of watching, from watching the show. I was kind of catching up on the latest show, and how I describe it to him is basically Naruto beats One Punch Man is basically the sense. And he asked me how so. I described kind of, it has One Punch Man's comedy and also the fact that they're both superhero type anime. So kind of that overarching kind of anime. I think also has somewhat the similar like action type style, although I would say it's more like a fairy tale in a lot of sense. And why I would consider it Naruto is Naruto, for whatever reason, Naruto shows really raw emotion. Like I feel like this anime has that same type of emotion in a lot of sense. And also Naruto, I think out of all the shonen animes, you see Naruto work the hardest to kind of gain where he is at. And I feel the same way for our main character, Izuku Midoriya. Izuku pretty much is this wannabe hero in a lot of sense. He has no superpowers altogether, but he gets given the superpower, and he has to learn how to control it. He lives in a world where there are quirks that exist, which are basically quirks are superpowers, and a lot of his buddies have quirks, and they have powers already, and they know how to use them. But Izuku is the only one that has to learn how to control it and how to use it, and it's real interesting. What this anime is about is basically this kid who finally gets accepted into this big hero school, and he has to learn how to become a hero. and it's basically him learning the basic steps of becoming a hero, and then finally becoming a hero, fighting villains and so forth. It's an awesome anime. You guys should really check it out. I've watched about 5 episodes and I'm hooked, and I think it's going to be. I definitely agree with a lot of people who think this is going to be the next big anime. So this is what I have. So these are my 4 anime. I hope you like these 4 anime. Guys, can I give you your thoughts about these animes? Have you heard of these animes so far? What are your thoughts of any of the animes I've listed so far? Please write down in my comments. I always like to talk anime. It's one of my favorite things. And I really want to just share my passion about anime overall. I hope you will like this video. Comment down below. And also subscribe. And thank you. And just shout out Plays Games for doing my outro. This really cool outro. And bye.